Okay, this is a basic introduction to caging, which is where you protect the ball to stop people getting it off you, basically. And we'll see why it's called a cage. So what we've got here is the lizards at the bottom. It's got 4 skinks at the back, 6 saurus. They're a bit similar, the skinks and the saurus, for some reason. And there's the croxagore. And then a basic human team with various blitzers and linemen and catchers and so on. And so what I've done here, so I've set up just a quick one on the lizard setup. This is sometimes what I do when I have a big guy on my team, that I'll put the 3 together like that and then put the big fella behind just like that. And it sort of works a bit like Fend in that if this guy were to block him and push him back to there, then it would discourage this chap from following up, basically. Because if he falls up, then he ends up next to the big guy and gets punched by him next turn. But that's kind of an aside. So the humans are receiving. Let's assume the ball ends up somewhere like there. On their first turn, they want to cage up the ball. So let's say this guy gets hit back, this guy gets hit back, this guy gets hit back, and maybe this guy will come round here and run and smack this skink. It's always a good idea to hit a skink whenever you can. Top tip when playing against lizards, don't worry about the saurus, kill the skinks. And so then the humans want to collect the ball and make a cage. Let's not worry too much about the individual players, but basically what they'll want to end up with is something that looks a little bit like that. Okay, and now that is the basic tight cage, is what that one's called, where you've got 1 person in the middle and 4 around the outside. And that basically makes it impossible to blitz the ball carrier without dodging. And there are many times when a new player will just leave a standard path to the ball carrier, and I've heard things said like, well, you're going to get to him anyway, it doesn't really work, it doesn't really matter what I can do because you're going to blitz him anyway. And it's just not the case. Okay, if you can form a cage, then it means you have to dodge in order to get the ball carrier. Now, the problem with the tight cage is that it's very easy to get a player next to the ball. So this saurus could just wander over here, hit the catcher, and get pushed back. And the saurus could then just stand there, be next to the ball carrier, which either forces the block or the blitz. Particularly if this player goes down, it forces the blitz on that guy, or forces the ball carrier to dodge away, which with humans will be a 1 in 9 chance of failing. And if you're taking a 1 in 9 every turn, then that's not very good. It can get even worse against lizards, for example, because they've got this guy here, the croxagore, who could easily just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, who could wander over to there, and then now he's got a prehensile tail on the ball carrier, and a strength 5 guy who's not going to be easy to blitz away, especially if the saurus then take the sensible approach of marking up the ogre so he can't blitz the croxagore with him, and then maybe even marking up a few of the other players with his skinks and just making life very difficult. So that would then be a 4-up dodge, which is a 1 in 4 chance of failing. And so the one way to counteract the cage is just to put a load of pressure on it, knock away a corner of the cage each turn, and what you're trying to do on defense is basically force the offensive player to make as many die rolls as possible, because eventually one of those is going to go wrong. And that's all you can do, really. So what do you do instead of the tight cage? Well, fairly predictably, you can make what's called a loose cage. And so if you've got the space, which is a little bit of a luxury sometimes, but if you have got the space, then let's move this guy over here a bit, and let's take the ball with him. And so if you have got the luxury of a bit of space, then it's not happy. There we go. Leave the ball there. Then you can do something like this. Now this has the advantages of stopping that previous problem, and it also has the advantage of meaning it's often 2 dodges to get in, depending on how you do it. So if we had something like that, then that would be 2 dodges to get to the ball carrier. Or if your war dancer was leaping in, you'd still be able to do that. But but it would be more difficult to cancel out, for example, this guy's assist. So you've got a loose cage there, which is also sometimes called a screen, where you've got that. Obviously that's more difficult to do as you move further up the pitch, but it can be a good idea often to get a loose cage, particularly if you've got something like dodge or sidestep on these front players, or even if you get a double layered cage like that. It just means you can't get someone next to the ball. And it's a very common mistake, one that I still make all the time, which is where you get a player there, and because they've only got a tight cage next to them, it's very easy just to knock this player out of the way. Stupid ball. Oh, I've got two players on the same pitch there. Just to knock someone out of the way, and then end up with someone big and scary next to the ball, so which forces the blitz on him, which can be difficult if they've got to stand firm and so on. And it, basically, if you what you should be doing at the start of each of your turns is thinking, what am I going to use my blitz for? And if you have to use your blitz to get rid of someone who's standing next to the ball carrier, then that causes a few obviously cuts down your tactical options there. So we've got two options when you're caging up. If you have not tried caging at all, then very much do go with the tight cage to start with, and if you can get guard on some of these corner ones, then that's a good thing. But if you're having trouble with your tight cage and keep finding people standing next to the ball carrier and slowing you down, then do experiment with the loose cage as well, as a couple of offensive options there. Okay, and we'll leave it there.